Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Ortgro, to present some of what we're doing. Some more broad talk that I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with, and then I will move to more special or specific topics that I'm also researching. Maybe just as logistics, I thought it would be easier to create one single presentation. So although my presentation will have slides, title slides for each of the new presentations, I'll just go straight into it in one presentation. So the first presentation that I'm going to do is looking at the current rootstock trials that we have, the completed rootstock trials, and then the new rootstock trials that we've got planned. But I think before I get into the detail of that, it's important to ask why rootstock evaluation even matters. And ultimately, the reason that we do rootstock research is to give growers enough information for them to make informed decisions about how they can get their orchards to be profitable over the lifespan of the orchards. This is a slide that comes out of a project which was led by Dr. Kalani Zaboza, where he looked at the initial tree costs and the establishment cost around that, and then compared the income after 4 years of that trial. And you can see here he evaluated the vigorous Geneva rootstocks against the then industry standard Morling rootstocks, and the tree cost at that stage would have been more expensive to go with Geneva rootstocks. At that stage, a producer might have made a decision to not spend that money, then save on those initial investment costs. However, when you look at the potential lost income over the 4 years which this trial was conducted, you can see that that would have been the incorrect decision. And that comes about because of the increased efficiencies that we find in these rootstocks. So it's important for us to do these research trials so that we can determine these things such as increased efficiencies, because ultimately that then means that although we pay extra for initial establishment, we save in the long term. And we must remember that these orchards are in the grounds for 25 years plus. Just to reiterate that the industry acknowledges the importance of rootstock research. You can see that in the past 25 years, the number of Hortgrove-funded rootstock trials has been quite substantial. And this is actually an outdated graph that I made last year for last year's symposium. So the number of trials that have been funded in the last 5 years, 20 to 25, can go up by 1 or 2. Hopefully we can get another couple of projects this year as well. So what have we learned from the trials that we've done? Firstly, we have a much better idea of the vigor of the rootstocks that are available to us. So in the current portfolio of rootstocks, there's more than 10. And without understanding where the vigor of the rootstock is, the grower can't do any proper planning for the orchard, because vigor is what's helping to determine plant spacing, etc. And actually, if you look at some of the first trials that we've done, we've got a dwarfing rootstock in a vigorous rootstock trial. That's no longer happening. So we've repeated these trials enough now that we've got a good idea of where these rootstocks are, and we know when new rootstocks are brought into the country, which rootstocks we need to evaluate them against as well. We can, at this stage, also pretty conclusively say that the vigorous Genevas outperform the older Merton vigorous rootstocks, and to such a degree that the Geneva 778 is now considered the industry standard vigorous rootstock. And if you go look at the orders for rootstocks that have been placed over the past 5 years, you'll see that Geneva 778 is completely overtaking MM109 and 793, which now make up a very small percentage of orders. Then something a little bit more niche. We've noticed that some rootstocks have got particularly interesting characteristics. So this is a photograph that I took last year out of one of our trials that we have in the Koa-Boekeveld. So it's a colder area that is on your left, Geneva 757 and M9 on the right. So it's got a stem trunk thickness that is relatively similar to M9, but you can see that the potential for this rootstock in terms of space filling capabilities and bearing potential is much higher. So there's some interesting things as well that we've noticed about specific rootstocks in these trials. What are we currently doing now? So I'm currently managing 9 projects, and 4 of them came to conclusion last year. Within those projects, we have sometimes got multiple trials, so we repeat the trials in 3 locations for some of the older projects, and then within those locations, we sometimes have vigor classes as well. So there's quite a lot that we're doing, and it's quite spaced over the Western Cape, but we've also got some trials, as you can see there, in the Langkloof in the Eastern Cape, and then what's not present on this graph is the trials that we have up in the Free State as well. So we try and cover all the production areas to ensure that the results that we generate are relevant. The things that we measure can be broadly categorized into two categories. So the one I call kind of general outcomes. This is where we need to determine things like tree vigor. As I said, it's important for determining orchard planning. We also want to know yield. So for the same vigor class, what is going to yield higher? Obviously, then that's yield efficiency. We do baseline fruit quality and storability measurements. So we take a fruit sample at the end of a trial, an 8-year trial, and we test the differences in MI, as well as putting the fruit through storage, just to see if there are any rootstock differences between how fruit perform. Then we also have, at the beginning and at the end of a trial, we take leaf samples just to determine if there's any differential nutrient uptake. It's a snapshot, just for us to see if there's anything interesting happening. And then at the end of a trial, we also do nematode analysis, just to, again, see if there are any rootstocks that are less susceptible to nematodes under our conditions. And then we've got more specific outcomes. Sorry, I see that that's a little bit, it's gone off. But basically what we look at, for instance, regardless of rootstock, we look at the influence of source material, tissue culture or layer bed. We need to know, does one offer an advantage or not? Then that says susceptibility to ARD. So we need to know if any of these rootstocks are going to give us the potential to overcome the challenges that we have with replant disease. The strength of the graft union we're also looking at. So we've got a number of different rootstocks, and we need to see if any of them as a rootstock maybe have a weak graft union, or maybe in a combination with the different scion have a weak graft union. If something has potential as a tree, we need to be able to give the growers advice to be able to say, don't throw this out, manage it in a specific way early on in order to see the benefits. We've also started to look at viruses recently. So we have a project where we're looking at the effects of viruses on the graft union strength as well, to see if that has an influence. We've also done DNA fingerprinting of apple rootstocks. So that has allowed us to offer a tool to the growers to true to type test their rootstock at a cheaper cost than what was available prior to that. And then, for instance, we also can look at what the effect of rootstock is on the green color of Granny Smith. I think there was some speculation, or is some speculation, that some rootstocks may make Granny Smith more yellow, which is obviously not favorable, and we can look at that just to confirm. So new trials, what's next and why? I'm sure you have picked up that I haven't really spoken much about pears. We did do some pear rootstock research a little while ago, but we are a little bit careful about interpreting those results after picking up some discrepancies in the true to typeness of the rootstocks. It's actually what led to us deciding that we needed to come up with a more robust DNA fingerprinting tool to be able to provide to the industry to reduce those kinds of errors. So we do have a Pharrell pear trial planned to be planted in 2027 in 4 locations. There will be a number of rootstocks included in that trial. And then we also, it's tentative, I must still apply for it, but I'd like to also do a rootstock trial on rosemary as well the year after that, depending on if that can go through and be funded. Then for me, what I would like to focus on next is to zoom in on the fruit quality. I feel quite confident at this stage to be able to give insights to the growers around yield efficiency, vigor, etc. But we, as I said earlier, are currently only doing a snapshot of fruit quality. So it would be nice to zoom in, store the fruit under commercial conditions as they would be, for instance, if they were shipped and stored out, so that we can give growers really conclusive information on any rootstocks that are susceptibility to defects, etc. So that would be next for me. Yeah, so in conclusion, rootstock evaluations take time. For a rootstock evaluation to be completed, it's an 8 to 9 year project, depending on whether or not we do 4 years or 5 years of yield. But I think I can confidently say that with each cycle, we generate findings that support more informed and commercially impactful decisions for the pome fruit industry. Hopefully, the information that we are giving out allows the growers to shift their planning. Once you put a tree in the ground, it's a 25-year plus decision, as I said. So even a little bit of extra information around maybe a rootstock that's less susceptible to nematodes or less susceptible to woolly apple aphid or something like that, that can allow the grower an opportunity to plan better, we would like to do that. So thank you very much.